happy Mother's Day, May 10th, 2020.
Hey, I was talking to Miss Linda, everybody. Good morning. Caleb and Mia and Abigail and Chase and Colton. I was talking to Miss Linda, and she was telling me, I was asking her what she was sending y'all. And she says that she sends y'all your take-home papers and your craft papers. And she does it like every 3 weeks. So we wanted to come on today and make sure that, or remind you that you're doing the take-home papers, you're reading through them, or having a grown-up do it, and also work on your verses, and then you can reiterate our lesson with their craft paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the craft paper. So those are good things, because we learn by repetition. That means that we repeat it and repeat it. So with what we do here, and then the paperwork at home, and then what Miss Linda does and hers, so repetition. We learn by repetition.
Yeah.
So it's all a good thing, and it all works together for our good.
Yeah.
And for the honor and praise of the Lord.
And just as a reminder, we purchase all of that material. And so that means that we're using God's money whenever you put money into the offering plate. So we're using God's money to buy those things. Mm-hmm. And if you get them and you don't use them, you know what that means, Miss Tammy?
It's a waste.
Yeah, we're wasting God's money, and we don't want to do that. So it serves two purposes. Number one, we're spending God's money correctly. And number two, you're learning your verse, and you're learning more and more about Jesus, more and more about God.
Yep.
And it's serving two purposes.
Yep.
And speaking of learning more about God, we're going to continue with the lesson of Esther. But first,
time for attendance. All right, so we are sticker number 11. Can you see sticker number 11? Ding, 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 ding. There it is. Oh, and Colton, what's this right here? What's this we see? A raised bed. Colton and his mom and dad and Riley, they are raising a garden in a raised bed. They sent us pictures, and they were great. Mm-hmm. The plants were healthy and beautiful. Good job. Colton, I guess you're helping Mom and Dad. I don't know. But they look good.
Yep. All right, guys. I see Caleb, and I see Mia's chart. Do you see your chart? If you do, pretend like you're putting your number 11 sticker on.
Song time. It's song time. So find your square. Today we're singing Trust and Obey. I got mine. Trust and Obey. Now, we talked about repetition, the reason why we sing the same thing over and over, and we won't do this forever. But it's for a little while so that we'll learn these songs. Trust who? God. Obey who? God. Because He is holy and sovereign and all-powerful, and He loves you very much. But we're going to do something a little bit different with the song. This is the second verse. So we're going to be singing the second verse along with the chorus. I'm sorry, my hands are really dry. Along with the chorus. Here we go. Then in fellowship sweet, we will sit at His feet, or we'll walk by His side in the way. What He says we will do, where He sends we will go. Never fear, only trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey.
True enough.
True enough. Now, Miss Sheila, what time is it?
It is Word Up time.
Word Up time. Remember, this is our time that we learn about a truth about God. All right, let's say it with me, please. God is in control. God is in control. What is that word that we talked about for the last 2 weeks? It starts with the S. Sovereign. God is sovereign. He's in control of everything, and I am grateful for that. Okay, so let's do it again. God is in control. Remember, when I say word up, you got to yell it nice and loud. Don't scream it. Don't go crazy. Just do it really loud. Ready? Word up. God is in control.
All right, do you remember the name of the queen that we had our lesson on last week? She's on the board, and of course these are just drawings of what they may have looked like. It was Queen Esther, but remember, she wasn't always a queen. She was chosen by the king. There was actually a contest, and she was chosen by the king. Now we know that God is the one that had the king choose her. God is the one that made him fall in love with her and pick her out of all the other beautiful women that were there. All right, so it's Queen Esther. She's now the queen, and it's the king
Ahasuerus.
Ahasuerus. Did you get that? So Queen Esther, King Ahasuerus. And then there's a third person that we learned about last week. That is Mordecai. Do you remember how Mordecai and Esther are kin to each other? If you guess that they're cousins, you are correct. Remember that Esther's parents had died, and Mordecai took her in as his own daughter, but they were really cousins. Also remember what Mordecai told Esther. Esther, when you go to be queen and you serve as queen, do not tell anyone that you are a Jew. Do not tell them that you are Jewish. Now, Jew is a type of religion, but it's also what you're born into. And she was born a Jewess, and she's called a Jewess because she's a female. Her uncle Mordecai is a Jew because he's a male, but they're both Jewish. But he advised her not to tell anyone that she was a Jew. And that was God's sovereignty. As Miss Tammy has told us before, God was in control. Now, Mordecai told her that because the Lord put it in his heart and mind to tell that, because there was a reason for her not to tell anyone. Was she ashamed? No, but it was to be a secret. If someone asked her straight out, "Are you a Jew?" she probably would have said, "Yes, I am," so she wouldn't be lying. But that apparently never happened because it never came out that she was a Jew. So remember, we have Queen Esther, we have King Ahasuerus, and we have Mordecai. And when we left last week was when Queen Esther was deemed to be the queen, and now she is the queen. And Mordecai is a special person too. He has some rank as well. He's an important person as well, that he's able to go about the king's court. So that's where we ended last week. This week we're going to begin with some new information. So remember, this is Haman, and we mentioned that he was an important person. He sat at the gate of the city every day and conducted business. And he was loyal to the king. And the reason we know that he was loyal to the king, remember last week we talked about how he overheard two men plotting to kill the king. And he told Esther. Esther told the king, and the king had the two men arrested and, well, shall we say, taken care of permanently. So Mordecai was loyal to the king, and as we said, he sits by the gate every single day to conduct his business. That's an important part, because we're going to introduce to you someone new. This week we're going to introduce to you someone new. His name is Haman. So this man was evil, wicked, mean, and nasty. Remember his name? Haman. And the reason that he was evil, wicked, mean, and nasty was because he was a high-ranking person in the king's court. The king did not see him that way. When he was around the king, he was very nice. He obeyed the king, and he flattered the king with all kinds of wonderful compliments. But when Haman was out on the streets and walking around, there was a rule that anyone that saw him coming had to bow down as he walked by. That's how selfish, that's how self-absorbed and self-centered that Haman was. Now remember the rule, every time Haman walked down the street, what were the people supposed to do? That's right, they were supposed to bow down. And here we see everyone bowing down to Haman. But wait a minute. Wait just 1 minute. I see people bowing down, but I see one person still standing. That person looks familiar, doesn't he? That person that's still standing is Mordecai. Remember what we said about Mordecai? Mordecai is a Jew. Esther is a Jew. And they have promised, and their commandment, and our commandment today is the same as theirs, that they would bow down to no other God but God in heaven, that there's only one God and they would not bow to any other. For Mordecai to bow down to Haman would mean that he would be disobeying God. And there was no way that this man, Mordecai, was going to bow down to the evil, wicked, mean, and nasty Haman. Now, don't you think that as he looked out in the crowd and saw that everyone was bowing down, and he saw this one man standing? Of course he did, because he was standing and he wasn't bowing down like the rule was. Well, I wonder what the Bible says that Haman felt like when he saw Mordecai standing instead of kneeling down. The Bible says that he was filled with wrath. That means that he was extremely angry. Not just a little bit mad, not just a little bit irritated, but he was extremely angry. And if you are already evil, wicked, mean, and nasty, when you get mad, bad things happen. So let's find out what happens next. Now remember what we said. Haman was high in the king's court. And remember, the king thought he was a wonderful person. He thought he was a very loyal person. So when Haman became very angry because Mordecai didn't bow down, he wanted Mordecai dead. He was that angry. Remember, he is evil, wicked, mean, and nasty. So he found out that Mordecai was a Jew. And do you know that this man was so selfish that he made a law to present to the king. And he was going to make sure that Mordecai died. And here was the law. The law was on a certain day that the people of the country would go all around, find the Jewish people, and kill them. And they would not be held accountable. They wouldn't count it as murder. And if they killed them, they could take whatever they wanted from their homes. But on a given day, they could go kill all the Jews. So Haman knew that if he killed all the Jews, then that way he wouldn't ever have any problems with anybody bowing down to him. So he went to the king and he told the king his law. And the king was convinced that perhaps he was right. We should have this law because he didn't want anybody who wouldn't bow down to his right hand man, Haman. Because if they didn't bow down to him, they weren't going to bow down to the king. So he made it a law. And when the king makes a law, it cannot be changed. So now it was a law. Now, tell me, what was that law again? The law was on a certain given day, and that was named in the law, on a certain given day, all the people would go kill all the Jews that were in the city. Now, we see the board, and we see a picture of somebody. And you're thinking, oh, this is someone new, so Miss Sheila's going to tell us who this new person is. Well, if that's what you thought, sorry. This is Mordecai. Now, why in the world does Mordecai look like this? Mordecai has on what's called sackcloth, and he has poured ashes out of a fire. It wasn't hot ashes, but a fire had burned, and he took the ashes and poured it over his head and down his body, and he's wearing sackcloth, which is a very itchy thing, like a burlap sack. And now he's sitting outside the gate where he usually is, but now he is in mourning. He is crying, and he is wailing, and he is saying, "Oh, my people, my people." Remember, Mordecai is a Jew. And remember, the law was one day in the near future, all the people of the town were going to go out and kill all the Jews. And Mordecai was a Jew. Remember who introduced this evil, wicked, mean, and nasty law? That's right, it was Haman. Now, Mordecai found out about the law, and so did all the Jews, and they were all sad. And then he remembered, oh no, Esther is a Jew. Esther is the queen. And if they kill all the Jews, that means that they'll kill Esther too. Now, we don't want to be killed. We're God's people. We want to serve God. We don't want to be killed. So Mordecai had to think of a way to talk to Esther about what happened to make sure she knew that this law was in place. So Mordecai told one of Queen Esther's messengers, who we see here on the board. He said, "Go and tell Queen Esther about the law that Haman has had the king sign. and let her know that she would not be spared if they kill all the Jews. And she must go into the king and tell the king now that this law has to change. He has to think of something. Now, remember, he cannot change the law, but he can think of something. But he can't think of anything if he doesn't know that the Jews really need to be protected. And he said, you need to go into the king. So the messenger told Queen Esther that she needs to talk to the king. Here is what Queen Esther said. We're reading from the Bible now. When this servant or this messenger came in and gave her the message, she said, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces do know that whoever, man or woman, shall come unto the king into the inner court, who is not called, there is one law of his to put him to death, except such to whom the king shall hold out the golden scepter, that he may live. But I have not been called into the king for 30 days. And she told the messenger to go tell Mordecai that. So what she was saying was, you have to understand, I can't just walk in and talk to the king whenever I want to, even though I'm the queen. The king has to send an invitation to me, and then I have to accept that invitation. If I just walk in, then I could be killed, because that's the law, unless he holds out his gold scepter to me and I touch it. But there's never a guarantee that that's what's going to happen. So I might die. So go tell Mordecai, I can't do this thing because I might die. So the messenger went back and told Mordecai. But Mordecai wasn't finished yet. Here's what the Bible says next. So the servant, whose name is Hatak, went back to Mordecai to tell him what Esther had said. And remember what Esther said? She said, I can't just walk into the king and make a request, because there's a law that anyone that just walks in, that they'll be killed unless the king holds out his golden scepter to them and they touch the top of it. And if I go in, I could very well be killed. Tell Mordecai I can't do this thing. I can't tell him that he should not have the Jews killed. So Hatak goes back to Mordecai and tells him what Esther said. Mordecai tried one more time. He told Hatak, tell her this. Tell Queen Esther this. Your life is also in danger. Just because you are in the palace does not mean that you won't be killed too, because you are a Jew also, Esther. So Hatak went back and talked to Esther. So Hatak had gone back, told Esther what Mordecai said. What was it that Mordecai said? He reminded her that she was a Jew also, and that she would be killed too because of this law that Haman had come up with and told the king to sign. So Esther thought about what would be the right thing to do. Perhaps she prayed. Perhaps she read. Perhaps she slept. perhaps she prayed more. But here's what she came up with. The Bible says that Esther then had Hatak go back to Mordecai and tell him this. Go gather together all the Jews and fast for me, and neither eat or drink for 3 days or 3 nights. And I also will fast, and all the ladies that help me will fast. And I will go unto the king as you have asked. And if I go in and he kills me, then he kills me. But I will do this thing because I love my people and it's the right thing to do. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther had commanded him. Now, what was it that Esther asked him to do? She asked him to tell all the Jews to fast and to pray. And to fast means, when you fast, that means that you purposely do not eat, so that you have time to pray rather than make and eat and clean up after eating. You're spending that time in prayer. And specifically, they were going to pray for Esther so that she would be protected when she went into the king. And they were going to pray that the king would think of some way to be able to help them whenever this law that Haman had come up with. And what was that law again? That on a certain day, all the Jews would be killed. So, Queen Esther was going to do something very dangerous. She was going to go into the king and she was going to ask him to help the Jewish people. But remember, if she went in unannounced without being invited, she could be killed. So it could be that Esther could be killed. So the next thing she did was, oh, look at the time. Wow, we're going to have to wait till next week to find out what happens. All right, it's time to go over our Bible verse for the week.
Yeah.
And it is, now I want you to notice something. It says, God is, and then ... a very present help in trouble. Psalm 46:1.
Yeah.
The ... means that some of the verse has been left out just so that we can memorize this part, because this part is what's going with our lesson. So that means that there's actually more to the verse, and that's why they put the ... They don't want you to think that it's not there at all. But we just don't have to learn that part for our lesson. This goes along with our lesson. So in our lesson, who's in trouble?
Who's in trouble in our lesson?
Who's in trouble?
The
Jews. Big trouble, because they're going to be killed on a certain day. That's right, because of the law that you know who made. So let's go over our verse then. I want everybody's eyeballs to be looking at the verse. Are you looking?
I'm looking.
Eyeballs on the verse. Okay, here we go.
God is a very present help in trouble. Psalm 46:1.
Hey, that verse could be for me too.
It could be for me. Hey, it could be for you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about the Bible, is that it means something to people, for everyone, at all times. Right? At all times.
Yeah. What's
What?
on your head?
What you got? Something crazy on.
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh.
It's itchy. It's
real itchy.
I don't like it so much.
It's real itchy.
It's not comfortable.
It looks kind of familiar though. I think it had to do with our lesson today.
Yeah, I think it did. Do you think it has something to do with our lesson?
Well, if you know why we're wearing this and what this might be and how it goes with our lesson, won't you send us a message? Get Mom to email us and say, hey, I know what that is and I know why you have it on. Will y'all do that?
That would be fun. I would like to hear
We'll
from
have to
y'all.
see. Yeah, we'll see if you guys kind of understand why this itchy old stuff is on us and who had this stuff on them in our lesson today.
Yeah.
All right, one more time with our verse.
And the word up.
Yep. All eyeballs. Looking on the verse. God is a very present help in trouble.
Psalm 46:1. Very good. All right, we're going to go ahead and do word up. I'm going to take off my, I'm not going to say what it is.
Yeah, that's up to you guys to tell us what it is.
You've got to tell us what it is and who was wearing it. Okay, these are dust too. Okay, so ready, word up. When I say word up, that means you've got to stand up tall and shout it out. The truth of the day about God. Here we go. Word up. God is in control. Yes, He is. And He was in control in Esther's life and Mordecai's and the Jews then. He's in control today. So you can have courage, just like Esther was trying to have. All right, well, Sheila,
right.
Miss Sheila, it's time to say goodbye once again.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye. All you mamas, happy Mother's Day.
Yes, happy Mother's Day. And happy Mother's Day, Cameron.
Thanks, She. Well, we'll see you next time.
All right, bye.
Bye.